In this last session today, we will now talk about the future of ELG. Of course, the project ends in about 3 weeks, yeah, so everybody's eager to learn and to know what will happen after these 3 weeks. Will we switch off the servers and go home and do other things? Spoiler, no. Stelio says yes. No, we won't. So there is a long-term plan, there's a short-term plan, and so on. I will talk about that more, but first I would like to call upon stage Philippe Gelin, who will introduce the language data space concept and idea, which he's done various times already. I think many of you know these slides. I looked into his slides already briefly, and there's some new stuff in there, so I'm eager to learn what he will present today. And after that, I will give you an overview of the future of ELG in terms of our sustainability plan. Philippe, please come upon stage. I will fire up your slides. There you go.
I promise you 15 minutes, huh?
15 minutes.
When you hear the beep, I run away. And I will try to wake you up. I was not falling asleep because a lot of things is interesting, but obviously it's mid of the afternoon, so people have a tendency to slow down. Moreover, if it's a commission presentation, you know, and the like. So I will try to make it a little bit lively. Yeah, it starts well, you know. Oh, action, legislative coordination funding. But it's important. Yes, because I start with legislative action, which is often a long and painful exercise. You know, but language is important, you know, from the member state and the legislative aspect. Well, language is so important that the member state want to keep the rights to that. So we have only limited action on it. But we try to keep on and try to do as much as we can. But there is a lot of different scheme and funding. So the second one is obviously coordination, and ELG, ELRC, ELE is the perfect example of what we can do at European level. And when I say we, is all of you. I'm just a mirror, as I was saying recently. But the funding is important as well, because that's where the money is. And we have been acquainted only to the Horizon project, Horizon Research, Europe, Horizon program, I'm sorry, because that's where the research funding is about. There have been other ones, and we will come back to that more and more often, because that's where there is also a lot of money driven to specifically member state needs, and language technology is getting more and more important. So I see more and more money actually driving towards this domain, and I come back to the second word, coordination. We need to ensure the coordination of all the different member state activities. Talking about that, there is a new beast as well, which is the Digital Europe program, and that's where I would like to focus a little bit more the time, because it's, for some of you, it's a new one. For some others, you say, well, I'm a researcher, it's digital, it's not Horizon, I'm used to Horizon, who cares about it? Well, if I tell you that there is money there, then maybe you will raise an eyebrow and start looking at it. And for all the industrial people, it's definitely more interesting. Digital program. When you've got an idea, you need the money. Digital program is not research, it's deployment. Okay, it's not research, it's deployment. Deployment of what? Of big tickets. And I was smiling in my corner the whole day. Thanks a lot for organizing this conference. Because you were often saying, well, you know, we need data crunching. We need cloud access. We need data. We need AI, involve AI and the like. And that's what the digital program is about. We have generated, thanks to you, yet again, we have, I mean, it's your things, and I'm only the mirror, so don't shoot the messenger, but think of your side. Big tickets. When you think about big tickets, it's about 1 billion each exercise. Cybersecurity, no need to mention the importance of it these days. HPC, more data crunching exercise. Advanced IT skills, and often I heard even for language technology things. I mean, it's easy, it's fantastic, the tools that they can do, but how do you deploy it? How do you use it? You need really to get a computational linguist. I love this word because it's very complex, and indeed, sometimes, often, you need this capacity in order to deploy the tools. Best use of digital technology is obviously the deployment, especially to the public administration, but you have the cloud, data, and AI topics. So I come back to that one, cloud, data, and AI. Often people mention, well, especially for language, data is important. So the European Commission, thanks to the mirroring effect, of course, it's not our fault, it's your fault, we have launched the data strategy. Data strategy, in short, is taking back control of our data, our economy. You know, we are not giving the data away outside Europe. We try to keep it and do business with it and take benefit of it. So for that, we want to create a genuine market for data in general, okay? So what are the key words? Of course, I know how you are thinking about data. Data equal, but I'm not there yet. Control. If you want to make really a business and make a market out of data, you need to that the owner of the data keep control of it. So it's essential that people keep control of their, I'm going to say it, language data. So the language resources. You own the data, you are sit on your data, it's your data. That we have understood, but you need to keep control of it. And technologically speaking, it's possible. So let's do that. Governance framework. If you want to build something around language resources, language technology and the like, the people who decide about it need to be the people involved in it. So the market player, the one who are providing service, the one who are receiving the service. It's not the commission. It's an important aspect as well. So we are not good at deciding, I can tell you. Rule of EU value, that at least we managed to get a tick box for EU specification. We want to ensure that GDPR, privacy, ethical aspect is important and kept on. Even though it's blocking factors and the like, we stick on this one because it's blocking factors in all directions. And if we are the first one to know how to deal with it, if we decide about the rules, we will have a better access to it. And it's important. It's a part of the social aspect of this exercise. Technical data infrastructure, here you come, you start rolling. Well, you need to be able to transfer the data. You need to get interconnection, and you need to get openness in the sense that everybody participating to that market is welcome. You need to ensure that there is no lock-in, like some big non-European companies have a tendency to say, come, it's for free, but once you are in, well, it's pretty difficult to get out. Data space. So what are data space? They are sectorial driven in the sense that, take the health data space, They are going to exchange data which are related to health. So imaging scanner of your limb, scanner things and the like, okay? Business, you can generate tons of X-ray data and the like. So that's where they will deal with it, with the security issue, with the business issue and the like. Agricultural, you could imagine the weather forecast or the crop growing exercise things. But as you know, around 50% of all the data exchange in Europe is unstructured data. And when we say unstructured data, we talk about language, video, speech, text, things. Everything which is related ultimately to communication, and hence communication in the large sense. No, not only text things. Could even say brain exchange. I have no problem to get the brain exchange from the health to be put in the language one. The language data space is going to be something a little bit transversal, really, but which is essential to build a new market. So if you look a little bit inside it, as I said, virtuous circle, not vicious circle, virtuous circle exercise. A lot of data, but in order to tap with this huge quantity of data, well, you need to have the tools, and you know about that. So AI tool, but in order to get the tool, well, you get to get the right data sets in order to train them. Circle. So what we are going to build, it's really a multimodal language data space. Multimodal, huh? where we will support the collection, the creation, the sharing, and the reuse of data. At the same level than all the other one, but with a specific angle of language. So transfer, semantic transfer of information, to also build tools related to that. I'm checking my time clock. I still have only 5 minutes to go. Ooh. Another thing with the big commission exercise, when we launch a big program like the digital program, we organize as well the supporting. People are going to say, well, it's too complex, you are over-engineering the things. I have the tendency to say, yeah, maybe. But here it is. I have to deal with it. All the data space will receive support by all the other big tickets. So when you are thinking about HPC, yes, but we'll have to get preferred access. Don't forget, it's digitally, it's a business-oriented exercise. So support with the HPC, support with the skills, the cloud, the AI tools, and the like. Focusing on exchange of data with two preferred friends in these things, the AI and demand platform, okay, where normally all the language tools and AI-based exercise should be residing, and the TEF, the testing in experimental facilities, where you could do large-scale, real-life testing. Then you've got the support center and the access, preferred access to cloud and the like. That would be fantastic if the timeline was exactly the same for all the data spaces. You've got a chance, which is also course, which is actually, you know how to deal with it. Thanks to the ELG project, well, you are 4 years in advance in this exercise, you already get the platform and the line. So, you know how to exchange data for the last 15 years. That's not the case for the other data space. So we will develop the language data space. It's going to be one of the most mature one, because it's kind of already exists. But then it will have to be adapted to align to all the other one in order to take benefit from the other data spaces. So that's one of the challenge. So how are we going to practically support that? We are going to generate, to call for a procurement. Procurement, 6 million euro. The timeline of it, where we should initially call for it, June, September 2022. And by the way, it's June. So it's amazing how the time flies. So be ready, it's getting out very close. The idea is really to start the procurement, so the establishment of the data space in January 2023. That's for the work program funding, this one. For the work program of the next time, we will keep on the supporting, but we also start to envisage grant to support the onboarding exercise, to support the transfer of information. I need to go quickly, 3 minutes. How is it organized? I can even go that. Two strands. The first one is the coordination. Mostly coordination at two levels. Coordination at member state level, because you know how essential it is for the member state to be involved, because language is important from one country to the other one, but it's not the same view underlying. So it's important to raise, and also to raise awareness, and the money, by the way. But also, I already need to go by. But there is also another coordination aspect, is at industrial level. Because it's a data space, it's business-oriented, you need to get the correct players, the needs and the providers of it, and they have to decide. So the governance, as we say, is driven by, in this case, both the industry and the member state. So that's going to be a challenge at itself. Okay? And we are going to do the role of facilitator, so basically the mirroring exercise. Practically, the idea is distributed architectures, as we were saying, data, you own your data, you do not want to surrender it, so downloading it to a central service, it's always scary. I can tell you, so many times I try to fight about convincing the people to surrender the data, to transfer it, if only FTP, well, I forgot about that. Keep it on your premises. You deal with your privacy issue, GDPR issue, by the way, and copyright, and that you exchange the metadata, and when the business is engaged, well, of course you transfer it. But that's your own responsibility in terms of privacy and the line. That's the idea. Transaction as well on the Euro side, it's business-oriented exercise. So what's the ins, what the out? Who are the players here? Who are providing data? Well, actually, look a little bit outside your remit and think about that. If you talk about text, audio, videos, you've got the media industry, you've got the publisher industry, you've got the advertising industry, you've got the medias, you've got the telcos and the like. Potential providers of data, raw data. And sometimes more trained data, like the research institute, the cultural association, the museum, the libraries, and the like. Public administration as well. Try to regroup everybody to see what's in. And being able to provide a second life of the data. So if you are a media organization, you are selling newspapers, you are selling it, and that's your business. But, and media already knows about it. There is a way to resell it second time and packaging in and selling it again. That's a little bit where we see the advantage of this data space. And then, of course, the beneficiaries is also themselves. So if we manage to provide them adapted IT tools so that they are better adapted to their need because they have provided the data, then there is a circle of generation of news and the like. I'm sorry I'm late. Starting now, I'm late, officially late. It is not looking, so that's okay. They take benefit of it. Benefit, in short, data, exchange, increase the quantity of data, providing new tools and new services more adapted to the needs, overcome the language barriers, but also the legal barriers, I can tell you that there is some, and technical barriers. So we will support on the language base this kind of things. And as I heard already know a few times, the networking. So community needs, community discussion, and transfer of information. Here it is, tom-pom. So what we have done, we have talked to the public administration, the publisher, the advertiser, the libraries, the telco, the LT industry, the news agency, the archives, the broadcaster, and the newspaper so far. Okay? They all said, wow, fantastic, especially that they see the money coming. Okay? Yeah, but they were not saying, no, that's fine, that's already good. But they all have their constraint. Of course, there are all different communities. So it's a building exercise. But really convincing, overall, everybody was interested into that. So that's where I'm going to stop. I have a few slides on the AI and demand platform, but it's basically this exercise of building, especially this one, the timeline, where there is a building exercise also on the transfer of the AI and demand platform things, but my time's run out. I'm really sorry about that. Questions? Or afterwards? You got the presentation.
Thanks so much, Philippe. I have about 30 questions, but we can do that later. You can. Right. So, presentation is called ELG, Legal Entity and Products, and that's exactly what I will talk about. Yeah, the pink arrows indicate where we are right now. It's almost the last day of the project. We are all exceptionally sad to see the project go, but it's been quite a ride so far, and the project has been running as smooth as butter. And so the question is, bottom right corner of the slide, and I've shown this slide in many, many different presentations, what about the ELG legal entity? So I think it's clear that ELG had certain goals, objectives, and so on, especially to establish ELG as the primary platform. And for about 3.5 years, I've been saying, yeah, and after the end of the project, we will establish the legal entity that will take over the extension and maintenance of the platform, and so on. What exactly now is the plan? To achieve this required scale, or that we already have right now, yeah, we cannot simply continue without any funding at all. We have various non-trivial costs shown here on the slide. Yeah, cloud hosting costs quite a bit, or creates quite a bit of costs that we have. We have a dedicated team now thinking ahead in terms of the legal entity, in addition to operations and development and people who are able to integrate additional services like from microservices at your service that we've seen earlier. Stelios mentioned that in the coffee break. They will deliver more services in March 23. Who's going to do that? Accounting, later on in the legal entity, we will have marketing, sales, communication. You always need support, management, maybe costs created by legal expertise. And yeah, we need computers, hardware, electricity, and so on. So how do we do this? ELG is meant to be a sustainable, living, long-term activity from the community, for the community, as indicated in my second presentation today. Support through ELG and the very, very little support we have in terms of ELE interaction, like the dashboard in ELE is running out on the 30th of June, and we need to be able to cover these incurred costs on a long-term basis, of course. And we started developing the ideas and the blueprint for this legal entity very early in the project. In about mid-2019, we started putting together the first couple of pillars, in a way, the first couple of keystones of the legal entity. First and foremost, we talked to our SME partners. What are their expectations? They said, essentially mirroring the industry session quite nicely, that they need a sales channel. Yeah, they need a communication channel to promote and sell their products and services. In terms of strategy and collaboration, they saw that joining forces can provide lots of beneficial effects for the SMEs. In order for it to work, they need buy-in from the whole ELG, or from the whole community, in the right way. ELG must be positioned in the right way with regard also to other infrastructures. Back then, in 2019, a controlled transition from MetaShare to ELG was mentioned, for example, and also that ELG is supported by as many national research centers or other research centers and universities as possible, as an information channel. And also what was mentioned quite a bit was interoperability of different tools and resources, like common data sets, common APIs, and we are getting there. So in terms of key aspects of the ELG legal entity, we talked about this in a dedicated task force that we established in the project consortium. It was very, very clear, these things are essentially consensus in the team, that this is going to be a not-for-profit rather than a for-profit organization, that there will be a distributed team, essentially like a EU project setup that we have anyway, rather than one central location, that we want to start small rather than big, given also that the developments in the field are so very dynamic. That's why we favor this flexible and agile setup with a soft launch rather than an abrupt transition. That was also quite clear that we wanted to do this also as a safety net, essentially. And right now I'm happy to report that we are in a role talking about dynamic developments. Now we are able to perform the soft launch. Yeah, so we have a couple of additional new projects that are able to cover through its project resources or through their project resources some of the costs that you saw on the earlier slide. So we can help out a little bit, and that reduces the pressure for an immediate launch on the 1st of July. And what was also clear was that the marketplace approach, the broker approach, dissemination, exploitation, participation model must be very, very simple. Otherwise, people will run away if it's too difficult to understand. Very rough assessment of the operational costs that we see on a monthly basis for the very first phase. And it's intended that there are no timelines here indicated in this slide. That was intentional. Yeah, so the very first phase that would then maybe start in, let's say, July. We have about 5K of costs on a monthly basis, and then it would go up if we ramp up the entity up to stable conditions whenever phase 3 will be there. And you can see that the costs are then far from trivial. Yeah, so we need to establish some kind of good system and setup of revenue streams that is able to cover this. So what did we do next? We set out to specify a product portfolio. Yeah, it will be a legal entity, it will be a not-for-profit organization, but still we need some kind of products that we can use and cover the incurred costs with. And together with the whole consortium, we defined in various iterations a portfolio of products that the ELG legal entity can potentially offer. And I will show this on the next 2 slides. And these products are targeted at members of the European LT community and also at stakeholders interested in using, implementing, integrating or purchasing European LT. And these are foreseen as revenue streams for the ELG legal entity so that we can find a good equilibrium between operational costs and ways of covering these costs. Right, on the next slide I will show you our main planning instrument, and on the slide after I will show you the product categories. So we will now go one by one through these different cells here. No, we are not. But this is, as you can see, it's a quite complex matrix that covers the different categories. These are highlighted in these green, yellow, reddish, blue, different rows here. And for each product category, we have specific products that we define. We have product descriptions. We say in these different columns, what is the specific need of a certain community, of a certain stakeholder group? Why would they be interested in this? Who would be interested in this? Are there competitors? What would they pay? Yeah, so in these, the bit on the right, that's a bit more saturated. These are first attempts at prices, and maybe how many customers we will get in year 1, year 2, year 3. And this is our main planning instrument, also to prioritize different products and to play with the numbers to see what the pricing could be or should be. Due to time constraints, we cannot go into details, but these are the categories. The ELG marketplace with the typical marketplace commission model. Public request for bids model is a specialization of the marketplace commission thing. ELG legal entity could also offer consulting services of various flavors. The ELG APIs, I think that speaks for itself. We can have a power user flat rate for commercial users, a power user flat rate for academic users, ideally for free, obviously, because many academic users also provide these services in the first place. And we are often required to publish our project results in an open access manner, so this is only fair, but we have to see if it all works out in the end, and maybe even a professional flat rate, so we can establish different tiers maybe. LT as a service for commercial users, for academic users, where ELG hosts certain LT services for a fee. This can also be tiered in a way, data as a service, just for data, not only for services. And then repository as a service and platform as a service, where we have the vision of offering, let's say, repository as a service as a full-fledged service for a country to host in ELG the national LT repository of a country, because it's easier, for a country that needs to create projects and they need to create staff positions and maybe hosting and offering, maintaining a repository for a whole country would require 3 people, 4, maybe 5, and maybe this is easier to host in ELG. The legal entity could offer events, we can have marketing and advertisements, and some miscellaneous additional revenue streams like maybe money coming in from foundations through project grants or through use cases or showcases. So just a quick, we cannot go into details, that would take days, of course, but just as a summary and assessment, this is a broad, diverse product portfolio that we quite like. It offers multiple options of moving forward, but not all of these products will be offered right away come July the 1st, that's clear. Before we make the final selection, we will validate these products once more with colleagues from industry, also with people from the field who have nothing to do with ELG. We will explain everything and then they will give us hopefully honest feedback. The ones we consider most promising right now, also for the start, are the ELG APIs, also due to the enormous market and demand in this market. LT as a service, also very high demand, the marketplace and the consulting product. I mentioned the idea of this national language resource, language technology repository already. I'm a big fan of this idea, and we already had good discussions with one country, but that didn't materialize for internal reasons, actually, in that country, not in ELG. And also exploiting ELG as the primary dissemination and exploitation channel for research project, I think, is also a very good idea with a lot of potential. So what is it going to be? The legal entity type. There were different options. We discussed many of these in detail. Of course, each European country has its own set of legal entities. There are also European legal entities, EEIG and SE, SCE. Some others have been in the planning stage, but they don't exist yet. None of which fit, though. So these European entities are out. There were some crucial requirements: flexibility, agility, the ability to ramp up the operation of the legal entity in a careful way. And it all boiled down to a model that also other similar initiatives are following, like the International Data Spaces Association. We will activate and initiate a registered association in Germany, ein eingetragener Verein, EV is the acronym. Has a couple of good advantages. This option doesn't require any initial capital. It frees us from the pressure of having to generate income immediately. And some of the staff members of that ELG legal entity are based in Germany already, so it only appears practical to set it up in Germany under German law. And the entity will, of course, work in virtual teams primarily. So summary and next steps, and I have 1 minute, 13 seconds left. So the ambition for ELG is to develop into the primary platform for LT in Europe. Most of the ingredients are in place, as you have seen. Governance structure still needs to be worked out a bit more. ELG EV is going to be the eingetragener Verein, the registered association. We have a diverse, broad product portfolio that needs to be prioritized once again and validated once again with shared revenue streams. And of course, the idea is also that LT providers will benefit financially from this setup. So for each incoming money where maybe companies, LT user companies use or buy certain products where a company is involved by supplying that product, they will benefit financially from this. That is one of the main pillars also. We will start small with a soft launch of the EV, of the eingetragener Verein in the second half of the year. And this soft launch is only possible because we're able to cover certain costs now through new projects which come in very, very handy right now. Philippe Gillin just explained the language data space idea. One possible scenario for the ELG EV is, of course, to be active here, and we are trying to get this done. And in the long term, this is not a secret because it was announced last year, that the European Union wants to establish it's actually another legal entity type, the EDIC, the European Digital Infrastructure Consortium, like an ERIC, but now for digital infrastructures. It was announced in, I think, September last year, officially. And one aspect regarding the language data space, I don't know when the EDIC will materialize or the language data space, but in the long term, maybe the ELG EV can then transition nicely in a couple of years into the ELG EDIC or LDS EDIC or whatever it will be called then. Thanks for your attention, and now we have a bit of time for questions, either to Philip or to myself.
I have an answer to a question, if I may. Sure. Because I realized, I had to go so fast that I forgot a few things. The language data space is also, just to be clear, it's also taking care of the language models. It's not only the language resources, it's all the type of language format of it. Huh? So text, speech, and the like, and there is in the slide somewhere in the corner also language model, but it's one of the important aspects of it, so to be able to get a platform to the exchange of it. So it fits one of the questions or needs that was floating around. So that was the answer of the question.
Great. Thanks for anticipating that. Other questions or answers?
Do we have any kind of examples from elsewhere outside Europe?
Marco is asking about any examples from outside Europe.
For the language data space or for the...
Something which we could learn.
Well, on the language resources exchange, yes, within Europe, definitely, yes. That has been a few bunch of the 15 last year. There has been also in the US a few, one of them at least I have in mind. But the real concept of the data space, there is a few companies in Europe also active. So that's one of the challenge and mimicking exercise. So keep the system open enough so that the existing clients or existing market can come in as well. But real example of that scale, not really. Not that I'm thinking about. Reason for that is that actually you swap the problem. You are not providing a service, you are providing the data. If you look at the triptych data, AI, and HPC, you take it from the data aspect. So in order to do language technology, you need these three things. You need the data crunching in order to, the crunching exercise from the data, but you need the data as well, and you need the technology, you need the AI. Access and the like. Basically, you can see it this way. It's so seen from the data angle. But obviously, you need the three. Plus the market, plus the players, plus the community. You know.
Yeah, but also these examples, right, like LDC, right, and the others which we all well know, they might move in this direction as well, right, because, you know, everybody does this language models these days, right, so it's not that they will stay as they are or ever. So it would be interesting to hear maybe Khalid, you know, Khalid is here, right? Use the microphone. Yeah, but, so.
I just try to be provocative a little bit. Yeah. So because I know this problem is always hard at the end of the projects, large projects, right? And often doesn't succeed, right? Or mostly this kind of entities don't succeed. I don't know, Alexis has the same trouble right now, right? These days. So what to do so that this would actually succeed, right? So this would be a good question, right? And so not to be competing with ELRA, with LDC, but to be orthogonal or complementary to these other initiatives, right? So that's why I wanted to ask Khalid if you could comment, right? You understand the landscape way better than anybody else almost here, right?
I'm not part of the speakers, so I'm not sure I have the right to have the microphone at this stage.
Khalid, we can make you part of the speakers right away for 2 minutes.
It's 40 minutes.
Well, I guess we are world champions in setting up infrastructures. I think Philippe mentioned that over the last 15 years, we did a lot. Just to keep us younger. I mean, it starts 30 years ago. ELGA is 27 years old. Before ELGA, we had already a large number of big European projects. But it's very nice to see that every 5, 6 years, we get something on track again and again. So well, I don't want to be nasty because I think we are probably for many of us at one of the first face-to-face meetings. So it's probably not the best way to be very critical. But I hope we will succeed in making something out of all these things in Europe. I think the European Commission is taking seriously what these language issues are, and it's very critical. Business comes from business, and if the European Commission supports business and ensures that the procurement are there to initiate the first move, and if we decide that European companies are really at the level that we expect them, then it's fine. While people were talking about SMEs, big groups and things like that, I was thinking of the European defense. And I was just looking how many aircraft we do have in Europe from different manufacturers. It happens that I come from France, and we are very proud to have Rafale. Some of people are criticizing it. But most of the European countries have F-16 from Lockheed, and others have probably different things. So the language is very sensitive. We discuss language more than we discuss defense. But when it comes to the budget, when it comes to the real funding, we are always stuck. And we know that the European Commission plays with the instruments that it has. The instruments are not very sufficient to what you want to do. But this is probably the most important move I have seen over the last 30 years. So let's trust that it will end up with something very, very important for the European citizens. Thank you.
Hi there again. I promise this one's less provocative than before.
Is the one who creating provocative questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I have a question about what for me is the most exciting part of the European language grid, and I mean genuinely exciting, which is the marketplace. Right now I work in academia, so it's a bit of a weird question to ask, but once upon a time I did work as a consultant, and very often the question is, okay, well, I want to be able to maybe sell a model that I've been working on, or you give it to someone and they have questions about, okay, well, what does the aftercare look like? And the ELG just it would solve so many problems. What I'm curious about is how you're going to sort of pay the providers. Like, what kind of model do you have in mind right now? Would that be sort of like a Spotify model where everyone pays a flat rate, and then depending on sort of the number of requests, it gets divvied up among the providers? Is there any chance that you're at a stage right now that you could elaborate on that?
So first of all, operationally, everything is more or less in place. Yeah, so we have a billing component. No one has talked about this today, but we have it in the drawer. It's essentially implemented with a financial service provider. We just need to configure it and switch it on, and then it's there. And then you can make a sell. We have these different products. I've shown this big matrix and the spreadsheet, and the different flat rate options are in there. Essentially, it's a flat rate model where you buy a monthly pass in a way, or maybe an annual pass that gives you a bit of better conditions. And the actual numbers we still need to work on. That's the current line of thinking.
Can I have my set of slides? Is it possible? Or
Sure.
Can we forget about it?
Sorry, I just had one follow-up question on that.
Sure.
So besides being a useful marketplace, obviously, as soon as you open the gates for people to sort of sell their stuff, then you might get a quality problem. Have you also thought about how you would curate the contributions by different providers to make sure that the sort of standard remains high?
Yes and no. So we have a technical review that the technical team does already now. Yeah, we have a publication lifecycle where the technical team checks, for example, the metadata descriptions, if they make sense, if they are accurate. So far, we don't really look in depth into the models. We do a quick check if it does what it's supposed to do. But I think there needs to be more about this, especially in terms of ethical guidelines. Maybe you've seen on Twitter a few days ago, no, I think it was yesterday, where someone trained a model on on hate speech, essentially. Yeah? They took a Reddit, the political Reddit, which you may know, and it's full of hate speech, full of controversial language, and they generated a model. They trained a model on that data to generate more hate speech. And the Hugging Face people said officially on Twitter that they debated this internally and they decided to keep it on Hugging Face, not to take it down, but they removed the interface. Yeah, the inference is gone, but the model stays, and people are not really sure, but it shows that maybe creative people do things with data that they maybe shouldn't do, but maybe they do it anyway, and then what do you do with such a model that produces hate speech? Yeah, maybe ethical guidelines need to be put in place to check what ELG offers and what it maybe shouldn't offer.
I want to, and I guess that if I click here, you will get it. Yes. One thing just to be clear, because we have been part of a community dealing with research for the last 20 years. This is a digital program. It's not a research program, it's another one, and it's about the same size. So I have a tendency also to agree, even though I'm getting old and suspicious about especially what the Commission is doing. I hate administration, by the way, and that's maybe why I'm convinced about some of the things. Don't underestimate the digital program. It's big, it's 7 billion euro exercise. Well, 6.8 billion. So when you free that amount of money and given and you focus on it, well, as all big program, they have the default and the lie, but it means that there is a trend. The trend being supporting the development, the deployment of technologies. Horizon exists, keep on staying there. It's to support the creation of new tools, new services and the like. It's a research exercise. The other one is really the deployment. And I think that on that aspect, when you see the maturity of the domain, and obviously you are the best place to know that within the last 4 years, there have been tremendous modification, tremendous exchange from research to development. We were saying that research is accelerating, the cycle of development is getting faster and faster. I mean, you are at a level where the output and the products are getting out. So the timeline for the creation of this project, the program is reasonably perfect from that domain of technologies. I get some support, some positive feelings. Oh, it is. No, with all the challenges there. And the change of mentality and keep on the link between the research and the deployment, of course. And ELG, for that aspect, was a perfect example of having a research community and trying to mix with an SME community and the language technology industry, and to start fostering even further the collaboration. Of course, we're not waiting to get the ELG to do that, but it was really supporting. And here we go again. With the European specificity of language and language coverage and equality.
Right.
Okay.
I'm already getting signs from the back that we should speed up. Maybe we can stop here for this session and come to the closing of the day, just very, very quickly. Even more slides, but I will keep it very, very short, I promise. Because it directly relates to what we just talked about. So, closing session. Before we have a reception outside prepared. So, it said in the program already, sneak preview at the book. 2 books actually, and I'm showing you the mock-ups of the covers here right away. So we've been busy in the last couple of months. The ELG book on the left, the ELE book on the right. I will talk about the ELE book tomorrow in the closing session a bit more. The ELG book is almost ready. Yeah, many of you participated. If you have, thanks very much for your contributions. It will be submitted to the publisher very soon, maybe this month, maybe next month, and the ELE book will follow in the second half of the year. Both books will be full open access, of course. The ELG book has 29 chapters divided into 4 parts, which you can see on the slide. around about 400 pages. Everything that you want to know about the cloud platform, about the technologies and resources, the community, and the 15 pilot projects have a chapter each. Of course, I'm very happy about this. The book looks amazing so far. There's a couple of things that we still need to polish, and then it will go off to Springer. Right, new projects related to ELG. I just mentioned that in between the lines in the previous presentation, new projects related to ELG, OpenGPTX, which is coordinated by Fraunhofer, Joachim Köhler, the Fraunhofer Institute IAIS, just started in January until December 2024. It's a 3-year project funded by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. And the main goal of that project is the development of large language models, large generative language models, I have to say, for German, English, and other EU languages, related smart services that we are testing and deploying with use case partners. And especially it's part of the Gaia-X program, so all project results will be deployed through a dedicated Gaia-X node. What is the relation to ELG? In this project, we have the resources to integrate ELG into Gaia-X. So this will happen in OpenGPTX. Many other things will also happen in OpenGPTX, but with regard to this topic today, in that project, we will integrate ELG into the emerging Gaia-X ecosystem. If you are following that a little bit, it's a completely moving target. Things are happening on a daily basis. Code is being produced right now by a couple of contracted companies and projects that will form the basic technology infrastructure of Gaia-X. And we will put ELG into this infrastructure. Of course, we will also use ELG data for training the language models, sharing of project results through ELG as well. So there's another project that was briefly mentioned in the last Meta Forum also by the coordinator Sonja Schimmler, Fraunhofer Focus, based in Berlin, NFDI for data science and AI. It's one of the NFDI projects. NFDI, German acronym for Nationale Forschungsdateninfrastruktur. Sorry about that, National Research Data Infrastructure. So Germany is putting quite a bit of money into developing its own national research data infrastructure, covering all of science. Yeah, there are about 30 projects in total in the end that are meant to develop infrastructures and pieces of tooling that support these different fields. And this project is about data science and AI. And in this project, with regard to ELG, we will integrate ELG into this wider NFDI ecosystem. It's a long-term thing. It will run for a total of 10 years, if all goes according to plan. And the first 5 years are funded. And here we will, among others, make use of ELG services and resources for shared tasks, for example, and also to bridge over into the semantic web community. There's another project that was just recently awarded. The grant agreement is not fully signed yet, so I'm not disclosing the name. It will run from October 22 until September 25 in Horizon Europe, and this project will develop a toolbox for data processing, handling, curation, for expanding digital value creation in European data spaces. So there is a bit of a link to the language data space, but it's a Horizon Europe project, but with topical overlap, obviously. And the relation to ELG is the creation of multiple links with the ELG platform and initiative. And the last slide, and the cat has already been left out of the bag, ELE2, and more on this then tomorrow. Thanks again for participating today. It's been a long day after all. It's been a great project so far. Yeah, so as a coordinator of ELG, I'm really very, very happy about the outcome of the project, the final results, that to see so many friendly faces and colleagues here after 2 years of COVID. Thanks for joining today. Hope to see you tomorrow, and outside there should be some drinks. See you tomorrow. Thanks.